Sexuality is one of the most potent paths for personal development, and I want to dive into one piece of why. One of the hardest things to do as human beings is to see our habitual nature, to see our patterns, to see our cyclical behavior, to see our beliefs. It's one of the hardest things to do. And we're like a fish in water. We can't see that we're perceiving the world in a certain way. Now, one of my favorite examples of how we differ in perception is that if we put 5 people in the same experience, they're going to explain that experience to someone else differently. They're going to interpret it differently. They're going to have different focal points. If we put in a room 5 people and one of them is me and one of them is my mom, and in the middle there's a little puppy there's a dog, then I'm going to have a completely different experience than she's going to have because a dog once bit her face. So that experience is going to be completely different for her. So with sexuality, it's epic because we get to use pleasure, we get to use high sensation, and while using those things, we get to look at our behavior so that we can see aspects of self, aspects of our mind, of our psyche that we're not aware of. So when we start to pay attention and bring attention to, like a scientist, with equanimity, like not good or bad, just starting to look at our behavior and going, I wonder why I behave this way. I wonder why I pleasure myself that way. I wonder why I do this with my partner. I wonder why this is a fetish that I have. I wonder why. And we just bring in that curiosity. Just in that practice, there's so much for us to discover. And I was just thinking about this. You're not consciously aware of the part of you that is pumping your heart. You're not consciously aware that the part of you that is circulating your blood. You're not consciously aware of the part of you that's digesting your food. And you're not consciously aware of a lot of different aspects of your mind, of your perception, how you experience life in the world. With sexuality, with looking at our relationship to sexuality, because it's been made so taboo, because it's been made one of those things that it's like you don't talk about it. Maybe if you're in a healthy relationship, which is very few people in the world currently, you're in a relationship where you talk about sexuality, you talk about habits, you talk about patterns, you objectify your behavior and you share it with your partner. We have an opportunity to really tunnel into the mind that is the psyche, that is the self, and start to discover aspects of us and be like, do I want to live this way anymore? One of the biggest things is that most of our relationships to sexuality were built when we were teenagers or even younger, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10, teenager. There's experiences that have shaped our relationship with sexuality that for most men, it still exists in the way that they perceive the world and life. And for me, it's been one of the most empowering paths of maturity and stepping into a more powerful version of myself that's able to see my habits, that's able to see my patterns, and is able to make a choice in how I want to show up and the man that I want to be. Not from a place of shame, saying who I am right now is wrong, is bad. It's like, no, this is the type man I want to sculpt. This is the type of man I want to create with love, with compassion, with curiosity, with playfulness. The way we relate to sexuality, when we start to look at it, when we start to get curious, get in there, dig, excavate, discover, it's a real direct path to personal liberation, personal power, and us really stepping into that position of you could say the king or the creator. The best way to work with sexuality in the style that I'm talking about is learn how to objectify your behavior. Learn how to be curious, and like a scientist, look at the way you relate with it. Like I said earlier, look at the way that you pleasure yourself. Look at the way that you connect with a partner. Look at the things that turn you on. Get curious. Where does that come from? Why is it that way? The journey begins and the journey continues.